Okay, item number 2, judicial site submittals. Tony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you recall at a prior meeting, we had were directed by the board to do an RFP, and that at that point the direction was to just bring them back in their raw form to the board. The board would discuss any sort of segregation, elimination, or future direction once we saw what sort of proposals you received. So we're at that stage. You have those in your backup. The information is what was received. You received five proposals, and you have the one unique proposal that was offered on that Moores property that was a build and lease option, which we didn't ask for, but was included. That obviously would be something the board could discuss as far as interest in that sort of an arrangement with whether it be that applicant or others.
Open it up for comments from the board. Won't everybody speak at once?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you. Tony, one thing that the board has, we've talked about before is the county-owned property over at across from Public Works, Pine Forest. Have we done any more investigating over there in terms of suitability of that site?
Excuse me. We've not done anything else relative to, I believe the suitability of the site is pretty much predetermined. Your high and dry property there, we have about 6 acres. We would need to add property to that location to make it feasible for the judicial facility. We've not discussed with any other property owners in that area their interest in that site. There is the 6th laning of Highway 90 does propose for Pine Forest Road to be extended to Highway 90 and the Kmart intersection, red light being located at that new intersection. So if you wanted to consider that, certainly that intersection would need that sort of improvement to make that facility probably feasible for increased traffic.
Do we have any sort of timeline from FDOT on intersection improvements there that you're aware of?
I do not. We could get that information, but I don't believe we have that at this point.
Okay. Thank you. You know, the board had discussed that location a year and a half ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. These discussions tend to run together, but that's county-owned property, 6 acres there on Pine Forest, adjacent to Public Works, near Public Services. You know, the school board's going to have a facility out there. Any property, if we did have to add any property on there, it's residential. It's, you know, we're not talking about highway frontage that we would need. So I'd like the board just to think about that as another option for staff to investigate as we move through this process.
Commissioner Lynchard, I'll just
Thank you for that recommendation. Commissioner Parker, you're recognized.
Just add that looked at that piece a little bit, and really for us, if we wanted to have the entire, I'm going to say block, basically, roads from 4, there would only be 4 other parcels which have homes. Obviously, the one is the fellow there directly to the south with the 5 or 6 acres, but there'd be 4 homes total. Not a lot. I think, like you were saying, the price, even if we decided that we needed that to be a little bit more comprehensive, would probably be cheaper than some of these commercial spots. But I have had an opportunity to talk with at least one representative from the city council, and I know that they had liked that spot, just in trying to juggle some of these around. I think if that's, you know, an area that we could have two fellows that like that spot, I mean, I would definitely support it.
Commissioner Salter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just hope we can make a decision. From day one, I have supported something around Avalon and Highway 90. I see that the JDL property, Avalon Boulevard and Mulat intersection is still available. It's anywhere from 13 to 19 acres. I just want to make sure that we're not only building for current needs, but looking into the future and don't tie our hands with a limited number of acres where we can make the right decision today or in the future for expansion over the next 10 or 20 years. So I'm going to continue to support JDL of Santa Rosa, LLC. I like the concept on Pine Forest Road. I'm just not sure how much we'd end up spending if we go into trying to buy other people's property, two-lane road versus the JDL property on a four-lane Avalon Boulevard, which also backs up to Mulat. So I think it just makes sense to just go ahead and buy the property, call it the courthouse site, and then move forward. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salter. Vice Chairman Cole, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Commissioner Salter coming on board with that because that's also the piece that I've currently been looking at. And several reasons. I considered the location there by Public Works, and there again, we'd have to buy out some homes. Even relocation of Public Works would be very costly if we decided to put it on that property where Public Works currently is. When you factor in the new property for Public Works, tear down, relocation cost of a new building for Public Works, and then of course the 5 acres across the street is not ample property. Looking at the JDL property, it does give us ample property. It gives us access from Mulat Road and also Avalon Boulevard, where we know we need multiple access because of Sally Ports, and the judiciary need to have separate access to keep them isolated from the public, not just in the building, but as you start to get into the building. Now, I know we've got a citizen that doesn't want us to see property, but I would only be willing to support this if we made a commitment to build the building in a way that public defender would have room in there, therefore putting the Fisher Hamilton building up for sale, that the 5 acres we currently have that would at that point not be of any use, we put it up for sale. And then if you look at the property from JDL, it's a total of, I believe, 19 acres. I think just something for this board to consider is that if we bought, and going from what they're asking to compared to just throwing an example out there, if we ended up being able to buy that entire piece of property a little under what they're asking, let's call it $950,000, and sell 5 lots off of that, and not even making them an acre a lot, but making them smaller. Once we develop all that infrastructure, I think there'd be a appetite for growth out there that the county could possibly sell off a couple of those lots, get part of that investment back. Just again for speculation reason, if we bought it for say $950 and we're able to sell 5 lots for $50,000 a lot after the infrastructure is developed, we're down to $700,000 in the balance of about 15 acres. So just trying to look at this in business sense and adding to that what Commissioner Salter said. We've got a plan for the future of Santa Rosa County. That's our job to do. And I'm trying to get this up on the property appraiser's website. If you'll give me just a moment, or some of y'all can maybe help me get it up here. There's an access to that we may also have availability for. Why am I having a hard time with this?
We can probably project that, I believe.
If you could, please, let's get that up on the screen, because there's something interesting about that piece. Okay, there it is. If you go and click on this piece right here, let me just go up here and show it so we don't have a pointer. Click on that piece of property right there. It ties into all our roads, but it doesn't have any.
So this is just a picture of the thing. It's not, this isn't the actual website.
Oh, it's not the appraiser's web, okay. I'd like to identify that piece. I pointed it out so the public can also see it, but can we put a marker on that to put it up on the screen? Got a way to,
Yeah, my cursor's not, won't show up.
can you, I just wanted, everybody to be aware of the piece I'm talking about if they're not already, but basically the piece of property, if you go under Mulat Road, the O under Mulat or under Road, that piece of property that extends into the blue lines. When I clicked on that yesterday on the property appraiser's website, it kind of appears like could be county property, and if so, there's another access place that we would have. Again, we have to have a judiciary entrance, we need to have a Sally Port entrance, and we need to have public entrance. So would that make that piece of property more tasteful if that's already county property? And I need to have some help identifying that there we go. Yeah, when I click that on a screen on the website for the county property appraiser, it looks to me like it falls in the outlines of our road. And anybody else got that up with me? It says.
Staff, is there any way that we
No
can
data
pull up
found,
the
yeah.
property appraiser's website and maybe go to that location? Is that possible?
But if that's, I think everybody's catching where I'm going with this. If that's already county property, that gives us another access port off of Mulat Road.
While we're efforting that, we have a member of the public who would like to address the board. Good morning, sir.
Jerry Cooey, good morning, 6049 Arnie's Way. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. While we're scratching through web pages, how about a brief description of the 5, where they're located, what their cost per acre is, if you don't mind, somebody? The 5 RFPs that came back.
I can tell you what the 5 are, and they're in the backup. The 5 were Guidry Land Development offered the Avalon. They're the owners of the Avalon and Moores property. They didn't offer a price, just that they would build a facility and lease it. The JDL is 13 to 19 acres with a range of, excuse me, $1,027,000 to $1,159,000. Jennifer Byron's property out at East Milton, the 15 acres, was offered for free. The Seville Square Realty, which is the old Beckford Ford site, was $1 million, which
What, the last one, say that again? I had trouble hearing you.
Seville Square Realty offered the Beckford Ford location on Highway 90.
For how much?
Getting there. 10.7 to 37 acres, 1.3 million to 2.3 million. Tahar Cronley offered a parcel on Avalon Boulevard at Commerce Road, 13.56 acres for $1 million.
And then at the county offices, that's a possibility. That's property we already own, right?
We own about 6 acres there.
Right.
Jerry, and we'd probably have to realistically acquire some property across the street there. I think is it across the street or something, same?
There's actually, I believe Commissioner Parker mentioned there's 4 parcels. To the south is a large parcel there, 5 or 6 acres. To the east would be 2 residential parcels, I believe, on Oak Street. I believe it
Do
goes
they have
over Oak
houses
Street.
on them already, those 2?
A couple of the parcels do.
Okay.
but it's largely vacant land. But the FDOT plans are to put in an intersection there at Pine Forest and Highway 90. So
Right.
that would open up that whole area to easy access to go east or west on 90.
Right.
And eliminate the problem that we saw a couple years ago when we looked at that site.
Right, okay. So what it looks like to me today is we have Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Lynchard that are leaning towards good stewardship and a lower cost option. We have two commissioners that are back to buying expensive developers' property. So Commissioner Williamson, looks like you're the man. I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of calls. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, can we get back to identifying that piece, the step, and then we'll bring that up? There we go.
You can see it's highlighted there in orange. I can zoom in slightly, but it says no data found for parcel. It is connected there to Mulat Road
Yeah.
and outlined.
And here's what I'm getting at, and I can appreciate what Jerry's saying, but we also don't know what it would cost to buy those other parcels that are just south of the 5 acres we currently own, and that's why I injected that we would sell that 5 acres, because not needing it anymore, and trying to recoup part of our investment by us buying more property and developing it. But if that piece right there, thank you, is already owned by the county, that's even more of a reason to put it here on a fresh piece of slate that's accessible to all the citizens of the county, the south end of the county, and not for us just to make a decision on where to put this, but to make a decision based on what will pass muster for the citizens of Santa Rosa County to support the sales tax that's going to be needed to build the structure. So that's going to weigh heavy on me as far as if we already own that, or if that's some sort of easement that we can use to put another road into this piece of property. I think it just makes that location even that much better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Cole. As I look at it and the 5 options there, and I appreciate the comments that have been brought forward, the Public Works site and this current site that we've been speaking of, the JDL site, both of those to me seem like they have a lot of moving parts associated with them. Either we have to relocate Public Works, or we have to buy some additional property, or here we just have the cost of the property. To me, the Guidry one is far and away the best option from the standpoint of it would not require the county to put out as much capital, because we would be, there would be no land cost other than ongoing lease, and we would not have to construct the building. The building would be built for us, and we would be leasing the building back. So I can definitely see where a cost analysis should be done to where we can start honing in on what would be the real cost as we look at, let's say we put a 50-year time period on this project. What would be the cost to taxpayers, what would be the cost to the county over the course of this 50-year time period? And one of the, I have no interest in figuring out how to go into the land sale business, and we're going to buy a property so that we can start segmenting it out. I understand the reason why you're saying that, to offset the cost of the land, you would sell that. I just don't know that that's what government does best. And it seems like the more moving parts that you have associated with a judicial center project, the more it would be doomed to failure again, and that we should try to keep this as simple as possible. So For me, I think the Guidry land development is the best possible option. We could choose the location on their property where we'd like to have it. We could choose the size of the parcel. There is no land cost. Somebody else is developing the property according to the specifications that we would set forward, and it is a great location. It provides a lot of options, and the company that would be doing it has a federal building that they have previously constructed, so we would have clear evidence of the type of work product that they do. And to me, that seems like the best option. But as far as a way forward for the board, I would recommend that we look at maybe selecting 2 locations or trying to look at narrowing things down a little bit, and let's move towards some type of cost analysis to where we have many different offerings here, and then we have county-owned property that is not part of this RFP that we may want to evaluate, and wondering what the board feels about maybe doing a cost analysis after the best locations on Avalon. It looks like we're kind of centering around the Avalon area, that we would determine a couple of locations and then try to get a cost analysis done, give staff time to take a look at comparing what the cost would be. Commissioner Lyncher.
Just wanted to clarify, Mr. Chairman, the Pine Forest site would not require relocating Public Works. It's across the street from the Public Works complex.
I apologize. All that would be required there is just possibly some acquiring of property. Okay.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Young. I'm with Seville Square Realty. I submitted one of the 5 proposals, and I've not specifically heard the proposal addressed. I've heard the other, I guess, 2, plus a new one that's been added, plus support, I guess, Guidry, JDL. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Chairman Williamson. Real estate is probably not something, that land development, that you may have a lot of experience in it, maybe you don't, but keeping it simple is absolutely something I think that the county commissioners should consider. And there is, in real estate, an old saying that holds very true, which is location, location, location. I've heard mention of all of that, but the property that Seville Square Realty has submitted on behalf of the parcel owners has by far the best location. It's on US Highway 90. There are enclosed in your proposals that I've provided to all of you improvements that are DOT has planned for Highway 90 and Glover Lane at that intersection. I heard this referred to as the old Orville Beckford Ford location. That's correct, but it also includes another 6.013 acres on Glover Lane that you have access from Glover, you have access from US Highway 90, and there's an additional up to 25 acres behind that for a total of 37 acres. So you would definitely be able to address your concerns of putting everything in a central location, not too terribly far from where your courthouse has been for years. So I would ask that you take a closer look at this proposal submitted by Seville Square Realty for that parcel that gives you room for growth. It doesn't say that you have to purchase 37 acres. You can purchase whatever portion of the parcels as outlined in this packet that I gave you. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to listen to those and then come back with a response if I don't have one readily available. But I definitely think you should give it consideration for the citizens of Santa Rosa County, rather than just, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. I think it's just far too important. There's been a lot of conversation about this issue for years. I'm a real estate broker. I'm also a Florida registered paralegal. I also work in a law office. I also go to the county courthouse for all the reasons that regular citizens do, but for business. And so I see the issues for security. That's a major issue at your current courthouse for the judges, for the people coming in and out. And I think that the security that you need, you have the ability to have a long lead-in from, I'm not a designer, you're not designers, And I think that, you know, the Guidry that you mentioned, that proposal, Guidry, that's something that wasn't requested. I mean, I appreciate that they've submitted their building plans, but I think that it's not fair to the rest of the people not to have an opportunity to submit building plans. There may be other people out there who are far more qualified than them. They may be the most qualified, but I don't think that that's proper to submit something that wasn't requested and then have that be considered without giving others the opportunity. Maybe that's not your plan, but that's what I thought I heard. So I appreciate your time. I'm not going to ramble on much longer, but I think that it's important that you give this consideration, this parcel. It's not very far from your current location. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will open it up for board questions if they have any questions of you. But as it relates to the Guidry proposal, we did put forward a very broad RFP, and it was asked for folks to provide proposals for a judicial center and a site. And they've done that. The fact that they offered something that none of the other folks that submitted offered doesn't mean that they were out of bounds here. It just means that they provided an option that would have it be a lease instead of having the county buy property up front. And I think that's, you said it best, I think that it's definitely different. You know?
It is different. Excuse me for interrupting, but I think what I heard was that they would be building, or they would build the facility. And in your RFP, I did not see anywhere where you requested for people to I mean, I could have gotten a commercial contractor, I'm sure, to submit a building proposal or something along that lines, but it specifically said land for a judicial site. So I went down the list and checked them all off to make sure I had everything covered. So thank you.
Thank you. I think it's just developed, if we end up with selecting locations, then I think it would be wise of this board to look at a build-to-suit option, especially since we have spent so much money in the past providing different footprint and design options and sizes and all of those things. If we could outsource that to somebody that builds buildings of this size and scope, has experience with it, and looked at a build-to-suit option, I think that could be a great way to go. Commissioner Parker, any board members have a question for?
Thank you. This is Mrs. Young, correct? Okay, thank you. Two things, and I'll piggyback because I know we're kind of fluid. I had actually talked with the county administrator about that issue you're talking about. It wasn't specifically asked for that, and I agree. It was actually our county administrator's idea that he told me, and I think it was great, would be that no matter, I think the goal would be try to narrow down the sites today. Absolutely nothing would stop the board from doing an RF, request for proposals for people to come back with a build and, lease and purchase buyout thing. That way, like you said, if other companies want to offer that, I mean, there's no reason to tie our hands and not do that. I think that's a great idea. And even the one they submitted, I think it was more of a conceptual, hey, we will. There's no cost or anything like the chairman had said earlier for us to look at. I would address, though, because I can appreciate the amount of hours that was put into this location, and I think from the face value of it staying in the city of Milton that they would probably strongly support it. I'm just making an assumption, but my caveat to that issue of why I didn't address it is right now we have a huge question mark with what will DOT do with that realignment. And I think, as you heard earlier, we're talking about downtown and 4-lane and Milton, and this could realistically be, I would say from watching history and current things, this could be a decade out before either realignment happens or we get confirmed that there's no realignment or that it changes. And I wouldn't feel comfortable with choosing the property purely from that aspect, because then if we purchase property, I will say my goal, even with the public works site, you know, I think I've looked at that. I've talked with another real estate broker about that has nothing to do with any of the land around it, but it's just kind of been a sort of a lifelong mentor of mine. And even wherever we're at, if we spend money on it, my hope is that we move forward, you know, that within the next year or two we can see the project going. And I don't know how, I guess I'm kind of asking because I don't know how realistically we could even consider that on this property with the uncertainty of what DOT is now looking at in the area.
Okay, I appreciate that comment, and I have done the research on that as well. I've been in contact with Alan Van, who works with Peggy Kelly, and that's included the correspondence, some of it anyway, back and forth between FDOT, specifically addressing that property address and Glover Lane, and the only projects that they have even in the draft stage are the ones that are included in your packet. And you can verify that with them, I'm sure. Did anyone do that?
They came and gave us a presentation here on this, and that's what I'm saying. If we look at the city of Milton, and I'll just kind of say it because I have, you know, we're choking East Milton residents out to try to get back in town to navigate over that bridge. That's been talked about since I was a boy. I mean, like Commissioner Cole said, things can fluctuate with city councils. We don't even know, you know, what the city may weigh in on this in 2 years after elections. It could change. So respectfully, that's why I could not support this location, is due to the uncertainty involved around it with DOT. Things could change.
Excuse me, are you speaking of the uncertainty on, do you think they're going to move the 4 lanes of Highway 90 that run in front of 6400 US Highway 90?
I'm talking about with a possible realignment of Glover Lane.
Right, and Glover Lane simply runs along the west border of this, what would be this parcel, and there is a total of 37 acres. You're only asking for 15, so I'm sure that you could carve out from this parcel your requested 10, is it 10 or 15 acres that you asked for? I'm sure that you could do that out of this, and that the Glover Lane realignment that would be something that certainly you have the resources to address. So I appreciate your comments. I'm not trying to be rude. So
no, thank you. I just wanted you to know where I stood on it.
Okay.
While we had it.
Thank you. Just a friendly recommendation before we're going to, just so we know, we're going to take a break at 10:30, but just something to throw out there to move things along to Thursday. Would the board have any interest in going with, I believe it, Pine Forest, Guidry, and JDL to have direct staff to do a cost analysis between those 3 locations?
I'll second that.
And that'd be something that we could support, and we can have staff look at. Dan, do you have any recommendations, or Tony, do you have any recommendations on, or could you come back to the board on Thursday with recommendations for what items would be included in that cost analysis? Because I understand we have to be careful that we don't get to a point where it ticks over into something that we need a professional consultant to do. So I don't want it to be too laborious, but could you give us some ideas on what that would look like?
Well, I think what we could do would be on Thursday, we could define for you what we would maybe recommend that our task be. I don't want to try to come off the cuff with that right now, but we could define that for you on Thursday, and then if you had other things, we could add that into the mix. Obviously, with the in the cost analysis, we almost would need to either get with Guidry and talk a little bit more about a 50-year plan that you mentioned, evaluate that and try to just give some thought to that as it relates to the other parcels as well that you might narrow it down to give you a kind of a apples and apples look at that. So I think somebody mentioned if we can just kind of hone in on the sites, and then if we want to take the design build concept, lease concept, we can kind of extract from that some sort of thought.
Yeah, because all of them, I see where you're getting, all of these are kind of broad, for one way or one reason or another. So if we could get to what the land cost would be, and what the overall cost to the county at the end of the day would be. If it's the Pine Forest location, all right, we think we may have to buy this many parcels for it to work, and we estimate that the overall cost would be X. And we do the same thing for all three. Maybe that would allow us to narrow it down even further. Before we move forward with any formal recommendation, you okay with that? All right, Vice Chairman Cole, are you okay with that recommendation for Thursday?
Yes, sir. I feel like it's only fair for us to lay out where we're at with these for the folks that have submitted. And I'll just go down the list. Tahar and Cronley, I don't believe is a good location, and I believe the price is too high. Seville Square Realty, I don't believe it's a good location. I've walked that property behind Flammer Beckford Ford. I've been, for years now, since I've been on the board, talking to different developers about that piece of property. I've walked it. It's got a lot of wetlands issues and creeks running across it that we'd have to deal with. And Jennifer Byram's property, although it's a nice offer of free property, we do have the congestion in East Milton, and again, I have to vote my conscience on what the citizens of Santa Rosa County would support in property. Nothing's free. If there's infrastructure development, there'd be a need to access South Airport Road to have multiple egress. So those three I'm taking off my table. JDL property, I've already explained that. I would like by Thursday to identify that piece of property that I pointed out. The Gaudry land development, I'm interested in listening to that for the points that the chairman have made, but I will not lease something for a long term and end up costing Santa Rosa County citizens a lot of money in interest. We have the ability to pay this thing out in 5 to 10 years. Buy the property, build the building, and pay it out with a half-cent sales tax if we can get that passed, and be free of this debt and not have an overbearing interest or markup, whatever you want to call it, on this piece of property. So if we throw the figure out there of $40 million to buy land and build a building, and we could pay that off basically almost just with a 5-year or 6-year sales tax and not have an absorbent amount of interest involved, then I would not be interested in paying some other company to build it for us and pay them a bunch of interest over a long term. Basically what I'm saying is I'd have to see bottom line on both projects and subtract one from the other and know how much extra it would cost us to have them take this job on for us. So I'm interested in seeing that, but I won't support it if it's an absorbent amount of profit to them and loss to the citizens of Santa Rosa County. And then for the Public Works area, and I'm sorry I convoluted that with moving Public Works, because I see now Commissioner Lynchert and Commissioner Parker's idea of adding to our 5. I would suggest staff just simply approach Mr. Ballou, because his piece of property would give us a total of 12 acres. Rather than knock on the doors of each one of them homeowners out there, just CE has the biggest portion that would, actually we could do what we need to do with just his portion and without the others. And if CD throws a number out there, that could be added to the mix to know where we stand on putting a judicial center on not partial property. And all these are going to be approximates, but I think it's something that we need to have to make that decision and also to respond to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cooey?
6049 Artist Way. Blue would love to have some of your money. I think I know him well enough to say that for him. One other piece that I failed to throw out 2 weeks ago is we have a beautiful facility on 87, the Pullum Industrial property, which we paid $3.4 million for. There's 87 acres there, highway access, beautiful piece of property that as of February of next year will be sitting there vacant for 9 years. So that's another real good opportunity. You were discussing earlier of extending 87 through. We know that the 4-lane from Whiting Field to the Alabama lines coming in. You got a short section that would cut in underneath Whiting Field to that tie-in. 4-lane road, easy access, just another one I think you should consider.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Cole.
And Jerry, I appreciate that. I'd like nothing better to see the courthouse out driveway of my house, but I, just like with Jennifer's piece, I'm looking at what I think the citizens of Santa Rosa County would support. And after the last go-around, talking to people on the south end, talking to people in Pace, I don't think we'd get support for us to move it to that side of the river and up there. And that's the only reason I won't support that. So.
Ms. Mahout?
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I have to say that I agree with Commissioner Cole about not leasing land and a building. Is that lease going to be set in stone for 100 years? Can they raise, what they want to lease that area and the building? I think ownership is always better, better to buy than rent. So I don't agree with that. Of course, I haven't seen all the facts yet, but I would try to avoid that situation. I know this has been going on for such a long time that you really want to get it solved and get it moving forward. I also agree with Jerry on the I-10 industrial park. I always thought that would be a good location. It's easy access from the south. You can come up 87, which is going to be 4 lanes all the way. You can come up and connect to I-10 over the Garcon Point Bridge. Easy access. You don't have to deal with downtown Milton for that location. So, and I don't understand why people on the south end don't like that location, because it really is easy access. But again, I would just say please stay away from the lease option, and I'd like to see the numbers on that. Thank you.
Thank you. If no more members of the board have any comments, I'd like to recommend that we direct staff to perform a cost analysis on the Pine Forest, Guidry, and JDL locations, and that they would come back Thursday with recommendations for what that cost analysis would include, and members of the board can get together with Tony and talk through that or provide their recommendations on what they would like to see that include. Commissioner Parker, you're recognized, and then Vice Chairman Cole.
Thank you. Just real quick, don't want to miss the opportunity to throw it out there. Talked with Mr. Henry about that property there on Sterling Way. Still an option if there was interest, but if I'm not getting the nod, then I'm willing to move past that. As far as the Byram property or the I-10 industrial site, if there were 2 other guys on that, probably even more so on the industrial park property, I could support that. So I'm just throwing it out there to the fellas. When I talked with people, I think the biggest issue that the public had with the folks that I met that were not in support of the sales tax, I don't think it really would have mattered if it was Pace, Pea Ridge, Milton, or East Milton. It was just when they read in the paper, we were choosing the most expensive site with downtown. So I think if we looked at an East Milton option and we said, hey, we're choosing a prudent site as far as cost, because we're not having to spend any money on the land. I know geographically it may not be quite as convenient as Avalon or 90. I was just throwing it out there before we scratched it. If there were 2 other guys that maybe felt the same way, I don't think that I don't think that wouldn't be palatable to the voters if it was cost conscious, because the majority of folks anyway, I'm just throwing it out there because I know it takes 3 to do anything, so I wanted to let y'all know how I felt.
Okay.
But if there's
Vice Chairman
no other
Copeland.
interest, then I'll scratch that too.
Commissioner Lynchard?
And I appreciate your thoughts there, Sam. I don't look at the action we're taking as scratching those off the list right now. I think we're working towards finding the best location. We're not going to find it on Thursday. The I-10 Industrial Park seems like a great location. It's right off of I-10, easy access from Navarre, easy access from Gulf Breeze, Pace, Milton. Because of the interstate access, it's as easy as anywhere to get to. I seem to remember from the last time we discussed that, though, is it in an airport environment? Military air zone. So there was an issue with putting a place of assembly on that property. The other thing is it is a certified site, and as such, some of the most valuable property that the county owns. Although it's not occupied now, but it is a certified industrial site, one of only a handful in the state of Florida. So, but it's still out there, and we can revisit that in the future.
The aircraft zone is a narrow band on the back east side of that, would be the only portion of that. It's just a little bit of it. It's not a whole lot of it, but.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairman Cole?
just one thing I want to throw out there for clarification. When I said possibly sell off some lots on that property, we don't have to be in the sales business. I mean, we sell lots now in our industrial park, and we don't physically get involved in the sale of that. We got an economic development that does. If we just notified or went out for proposals to turn that over to a realtor, and that's just throwing out some ideas there. I mean, we're in the land buying and selling business. As I said, if we found out we don't need that 5 acres, and that turns out not to be what we do, my thoughts are we put it on the chopping block. Fisher Hamilton building, when we evacuate that building, there's no sense in us keeping it. We put that back on the tax roll. If we can get out of the probation building, put it back on the tax roll. Those, unfortunately, we're in the real estate business, whether we want to be or not, but we're not hands-on. We turn that over to a third party to take care of for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. And just trying to speak primarily to the amount of moving parts that we would have on a deal. And as we develop them, we'll be able to see what that JDL parcel would have. I did want to speak to Commissioner Lynchard's comments, and I agree that we're not going to have a site determined on Thursday. I didn't look at that as, these are the final 3 sites either. I looked at this as an opportunity for us to start, narrowing it down. And because, as has been mentioned here today and many times before, we've been going at this a little while. So as we try to go at it again this time, trying to get the location. That's the first thing that we got to get locked down. And so this will help us get closer to that. And if there's no objection to the motion that's been put forward, to the recommendation, the directing of staff for Thursday, then I will make that motion without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved to Thursday. We will now take a 10-minute break and be back at 10:40.